welcome. This is Game Guru's Twitch broadcast live, unscripted, uncensored. Haven't a faintest idea what I'm going to talk about. Actually, I had a little bit of a look into the forums, see if there's any requests about what you would like to see or hear, or have me demonstrate, but didn't see anything, so I'm going to make something up. Hopefully you can all hear me fine. You can see Game Guru website, which is where I usually start from. And what I think I'd like to cover today, and of course you can change this script anytime you like, just post in the live chat on Twitter, on Twitch, sorry. There's too many T's in the world. And if you want to see something specific, just let me know. You can do it live and I can change what I'm going to do. But without any guidance, what I'm going to show you is the latest update, because we've added lots of new commands, and there are some commands that I added that I wanted to play around with but simply didn't have the time because I was fixing bugs. But now I have about 45, 50 minutes to play around. I think I'd like to show you some of those commands to show you how I envisage them being used and then what you can do with them. And they're really groundbreaking, they're super powerful, they're going to allow you to create a lot more kinds of games with these commands. And I'd also like to announce, before I'll get cracking, is we are going to release the update. This is the version 1.11. We're going to update it right now. Live, immediately, right now. I was asked by Ravy to give him a subtle hint as to when I wanted it to go live. Well, this is my subtle hint. Ravy, make it live right now. So hopefully, when all the cogs have stopped swirling, you should be able to get that download in about 5 to 10 minutes. And then you'll be able to play around with all the really cool things that we've been adding. It was only ever meant to be a tweak update. Just a little bit of refining the edges of the performance update. The big one that we actually did with 1.1 a couple of weeks ago. But we kind of got carried away. And as an example of how we got carried away, just check out the changelog when you actually get the update. And you'll have an idea of how mad it got. Actually, I think I'll probably just stop Steam, because otherwise we'll be continually inundated with people joining and leaving and doing different things and all that kind of cool stuff. So hopefully it will let me end eventually. Alright, cool. So what we're going to show is some of those commands. Now, last week you may remember Ravy covered some of the sprite commands, which I think are some of the coolest commands we've added to the Lua scripting system since we started Game Guru. But I added a few things that complement those sprite commands, and you'll also find that I've not actually used the sprite commands before myself. It was Ravy that implemented them, and now I'm going to discover them at the same time you are. And so if I get it wrong, I do apologise in advance, but you know, this is a learning curve. So, like I said, if you've got any questions, any directions, anything you want to see in Game Guru, just post it in the live chat. So until that, I'm actually going to jump straight into the Game Guru folder, and I'm going to start off by browsing and basking in the glory of global.lua. As you may know, this is the master file for Lua script, Lua scripters. These are all the globals that we've assembled so far. As you can see, there's quite a lot of them. Sort of a Lua-based control of the AI system. A lot of buried inside the Dirk AI module, but we've exposed a lot as well. And these are all the player-specific stuff, so you can grab lots of different information now about what the player is doing, where it is, what angle you're facing, how much lives you've got, how much health you've got, what gun you've got, and you can change the guns and all this kind of stuff. And these are the ones I want to show you, actually, these ones at the bottom. You all knew about key pressed E, but now we've actually expanded that with a couple of more common keys and control keys and any key that you've pressed. But then these are really cool ones: mouse X, mouse Y, mouse wheel and mouse click. What's so really cool and special about those four last commands is you can create your own inventory systems, menu systems, games, all inside your 3D experience. You can have a 2D experience, which is pretty much anything your imagination can conceive, anything your programmer can program, with a combination of input commands and sprite commands. So, what I'm going to do is start off with a brand new script. No, I'm not. I never start off with a brand new script. I'm going to start off with something I know about, like health.lua, and then we can just rename it to something that I want. So let's see. let's not go crazy, but I'm actually going to call it inventory as a tease. But certainly it's not going to be an entire inventory system written in 20 minutes. I don't think that's something you would want to use. But it allows me to get started quickly. And when the player gets within 80 units, let's say when they're within 150 units of some entity, then maybe do a prompt. And we don't need a duration, we just want it to be on all the time. So what we'll do is, let's just say hello. I just want to sort of get the script up and running, you see, to see it all works. So that's my mission. So now I'm going to go and launch Game Guru. We're going to drop in an entity, maybe the classical barrel. We've been discussing ideas. Now we've got all these new 2D commands and then the evolution of the HUD systems and stuff in the store as well. We thought we could probably have another tab up here, so you could just drag in a radar and drag in a new live system and drag in menus and stuff and then configure them like live in the editing area. But that's for another day. For now, the classic view is you get a barrel, make sure it's green so it's dynamic, go into its properties, main, and then you select the script that you want. So in my particular case, it's that inventory script I just created. Apply it, make a start marker, some way off from the barrel, save it, and then we're going to run it. And I think what will happen is when you get within a certain distance, it'll say hello. Make sure those disappear first. There you go. So we know our script's working, we're in Game Guru, everything is fine, and now we get to start enjoying ourselves. I'm just going to check the chat first to see if there's anything like no one can hear me. That would be a really good thing to read on the feedback. Just tab. I must also mention that I've upgraded my system slightly. I built a machine a while back, but during the crunch of the performance work I couldn't really switch machines over, it was too critical. During this 1.11 update I was given the opportunity to switch machines over, so I have upgraded my monitor to a 4K 2K, so it's sort of a modern day monitor which runs at 60 megahertz, which is pretty cool. And I've got my my beastie computer with the GTX 980 and the 12 cores or whatever it is, running insane speeds, which is pretty cool. But in doing so, I've kind of like wiped everything out, all my tools and things like that. So all my configurations are out. So I will probably spend a couple of weeks tweaking it. So I'm just looking at Game Guru. Ravy says it's done. Hi Keith. Hi Ravy, released. Works for me. Update already now. Alright, everyone's getting their update. That's great. No questions on the forum till after, please. I'm not budging till Twitch is finished. Okay, that's good to hear. Everyone's sticking around. VIG says sound is low, and Sync Commander agrees. Lee, the sound is very low. Game Guru. Lee's mic is very low, but game sounds very loud. Okay, so what we're going to have to do is temporarily pause my broadcast while we solve this. Fortunately, we're only 10 minutes in, so we can have a bit of a play. But you can see this is the settings for our Twitches, and we've got ourselves set up as the speakers for what you hear. That's the game audio, and then microphone or the auxiliary audio is the Yeti microphone, which people are saying is quiet. So let's see if we can do a mic boost. Yeah, okay. Let's boost it by 10. Let's multiply it by 10. No, that'd be crazy. Multiply it by 5. So I'll apply that. Hopefully you can hear it now. So as soon as the sound comes through, let me know whether I've just gone over the top and now it's extremely loud. There's other buttons I can try, but I want to start within this. So I've just been looking. I've actually got oh, Raven says it's much better. That is good. That's better. Yep, perfect. Okay, I got massive consensus that fixed it. So I'm really pleased about that. So we'll pop that away and we carry on with the extravaganza that is Game Guru's scripting system. So obviously in the future you won't rely on barrels to run your 2D HUD scripts. So in lieu of that next evolution, let's assume that this barrel represents something you can drag in and activate within your game. We're just going to walk up to it, that's how we're going to activate it. So having walked up to your trigger, you want to do some amazing and wonderful things. So what I'm going to like to show you is the sprite commands, loading in an image, moving it around with the mouse pointer. I think that would be really cool to show. And like I said, this is all really frontier stuff for me, because I've never actually used the sprite commands before. So what I'll probably do, and it's good advice if you are starting off in scripting or even programming, is look at existing programs. It's a great way to learn, because stuff that already exists works, it runs, it compiles fine, it does what it's supposed to do. You can not only learn from it, but you can cut and paste, and you know what you've pasted generally is going to work, providing you understand the foundation of it. Having had a few years experience of the foundation of programming, I kind of know that load image is using everything from the files folder and above, so it's a relative from the files folder, and it's got a global here, storing it there, then you're creating a sprite using that image number, and then creating a sprite number. Then you're setting the sprite priority, and you set sprite position to set the position. I think that's enough for me to get started with, don't you? And just so I don't really have to think too much, I'm going to just pick that. Obviously change the names. So in my init bit, that's the bit that gets called before the game starts. We're going to have something called Lee's cursor equals 0, that makes it a global. But what I would recommend everybody do is use as a prefix the exact name of the script. That way, if you add lots of different scripts from different people together, you won't have globals overwriting each other. Remember, every variable here is a global. Everything can write into anybody else's global. It can become quite dangerous for large scripting systems. So that kind of ensures that it's a pretty long variable name, and it's probably going to be unique to inventory.lua. So I'm quite happy to have that until we introduce something more sophisticated down the line. And I already know script radar yellow exists, but just for your benefit, I'll show you a bit. We've actually got my brain's like cheese, radar-yellow.png, radar-yellow.png. So it's gonna take that from script back radar. Yeah, cool. So having loaded it in, now we want to do something about it. Well, we want to create that sprite, don't we? So create sprite using that image number, but then we need some identifiers. So img is the image, and then spr is the sprite index. So now by that point we'll have created a sprite, but we don't necessarily know where it is. So if we do set sprite position, and this is where I get really impressed that I just seem to remember all these. The reason is we took a pretty savvy decision to reuse all the command set, the syntax from AGK. So by learning one, you learn the other, and vice versa. A very powerful little idea we had there, and a little indicator of what may happen in the future, and I shall say no more. Size, is that size based on percentage or on actual sprite size? Let's have a look at this. 15, I think it's pixels actually. You wouldn't have a dot on that radar, 15% of the width of the screen. So it's pixels. So let's say I wanted 64 pixels and let it take care of the other to keep aspect ratio and the size of the image intact. What's all that going to do, I hear you scream? Not a clue. There's a lot of it. I've never done these commands before, but in theory it's going to pop a sprite on the screen that looks like a large yellow dot when I run it. And it'll say hello as well. Ravis confirms it is percentage. So by setting it at 64, that dot is supposed to be... well, it won't do that until I move near it. Ravi is correct. It is percentage. I can't see my screen anymore. Right. Alright, cool. That's excellent. Now you noticed it was in the top corner and we didn't really want to see it at that point. There's probably a command called hide sprite, but I don't know for sure. So what you do is you go to global, you type it hide sprite, Now this shouldn't have it, actually. This is how you used to be able to find commands, you see. I don't know this sprite command anymore because it's not here. Usually when you want to find a command, you scroll down and you find it here, and then you know the syntax, you know the parameters. I don't have any such guidance. But you do. Just go to the radar.lua and you'll find all the commands in here somewhere. And at some point, there would have been a command to hide a sprite. Now obviously there's an easier way and just move its position out of the way of the screen. So it's just as good as hiding it, because it gets cold and it doesn't even get drawn because it knows it's already outside of the bounds of the view frustum of the screen. But I don't seem to be able to see hide a sprite anymore. And a third option, perfectly acceptable, is do this. Pretend that it is a command and put it in anyway in the hopes that it actually works. So now when we run it, we should see the yellow dot in the top left corner. Nope, that command doesn't exist. But you see, it's forgiving. Even if a sprite doesn't exist, command doesn't exist, it doesn't crash your whole program, it just ignores it. So obviously we don't have a hide and show. I think I specifically requested that, Dave. I guess I was keeping you busy. Alright, so that positions it at 200% by 200%. That means it takes the width of the screen, doubles it, and then positions the sprite at that location. So there's just no way you'll see that on the screen. So now when we run, the yellow dot won't be there initially, then when you move near, the sprite kicks in. Like so. But I don't want it that big. I want a little one. So the percentage I want will be about 10%. And this is important for what I'm going to do next, because we can't have a great big yellow circle. Dink. That's nice, yeah, not too pixelated. I kind of like that. But the thing I really wanted to show is how can that dot become like a cursor for a possible UI that you're going to create, which is really where I'm going with this crazy little lecture. We can get rid of prompts now because we know everything else is working nice. We want to freeze that player, and we want some flags to control what's going on. So if we have an inventory flag which says mode, just a nice general flag for that. Mode 0 is you're playing the game, minding your own business. Then at some point you want to get into your inventory system, or you want to have a shop dialogue, or an interactive thing where you got a lockpick for open a door, whatever it happens to be. You want to be able to control the state of that. So if we are on mode 0, then we're going to do something. And if we are in mode of 1, then we want to do something else. Now we want our sprites floating around when mode is 1. How do we get to mode equals 1? Well, you want to do this. Player is less than 150 units. So when you get to that, set it to 1. But what you can also do is freeze the player, because you don't want the player running around when you're supposedly lockpicking. There it is. Freeze player. Like that. No parameters, it just freezes it. So now when you get near enough, set it to mode 1, freeze the player, and then after that, from then on, you can never get further away than 150 units because your feet have just been frozen. And then whilst you're in that sort of location and mode is 1, you can do all these cool and wonderful things. And I want to show you a little more about these cool and wonderful things, like, if we go back to global, there's another one called activate mouse. And what that does, in addition to freezing the player, it decouples the mouse, that's the mouse that you usually use to sort of do mouse look, decouples it from the player's mouse look system, and it gives you the coordinates directly to LuaScript, so then you can actually grab the mouse pointer. We'll not do the opposite of this. I always like to, in fact we will, it's good practice. When you're doing initialization stuff or setting stuff up, you're coming into a thing, you're nesting into something. Always plan to get out at the very beginning. That way you remember things that you've initialized and set can be uninitialized and unset. It's just good working practice. So whoever sets inventory mode to 99 will then unfreeze the player. And rather than guess, I'm just going to copy paste from global.lua. And I'm going to free the mouse so you can actually use the mouse again. So, and who sets 99? I don't care yet, but we do need to come out at some point. Maybe there's a button you press, or maybe after 15 seconds or something. In fact, I'll add that, but won't do it yet. I don't want to overload you with all this crazy gobbledygook. Move that out of the way. Touch.
So if we run that, make sure that at least that much works. When we get near to the barrel, our player should freeze, can't actually move, but we see that yellow dot. Yeah, so there. I'm moving the mouse pointer and nothing's happening. And the barrel's moving a little bit, which I think is quite interesting. I don't know what that's about. But for me, there's a gremlin underneath. There we have. Put it on a gremlin. So now is the cool thing. It's the bit I really wanted to show off, but I needed to do all that preamble just to get to this point. And that's mouse X and mouse Y. And all I'm going to do is replace the coordinate 1010, which is putting it sort of at 10% across the screen and 10% down the screen, with mouse X and mouse Y, which is the up-to-date live value of the mouse pointer in percentage coordinates. And to prove that, I'm going to reintroduce my prompt command and actually say mouse X text mouse X equals concatenate with that value, and also show mouse Y equals concatenate the Y value. So what that's going to do, it's going to do the text mouse X equals and then some value, then mouse Y equals some value, just to prove it works. And if this, however, doesn't work, we've got some more values to back up our little experiment. So now we get close, and as you can see, we've now got that's another thing as well. I'm on multi-monitor support now. My new system actually has two, so I've got my little my Twitch viewer on one, and then my screen on the other. But for whatever reason, I moved the mouse pointer into the multi-monitor, and I can't move it back into the main screen. That's very interesting. I suppose it's because it's player frozen, isn't it? But I suppose what we're going to have to do is we got it back. Somehow we got it back. Go back into here, click. Okay, I guess it's something to do with that freeze player. But that's probably something to look at actually. If you've got multi-monitor, stay away from it if you're using these commands for the moment. We'll investigate that. But what I can demonstrate is what I was after all along, which is maybe reducing that a bit more. It's a bit too big, so it's 5%. Is introduce some more elements, because we've always been used to HUDs that could display one image, but that was one of the limitations. But with sprites, you can now have many. You can have as many as you want. And we just happen to have some graphics. Now I'm not going to start drawing, or am I? Am I going to start drawing? What time is it? 6:24. Yeah, okay. I think I am going to start drawing. So I'm going to create a new folder, inventory. And best thing to do, I always like to just cut and paste stuff. So let me pick something like that, put it in here, give it inventory underscore panel. Notice this common theme about inventory and naming it and stuff. So I need to keep all those. Those are my debug snapshots of a rather fiendish bug I've managed to find. You have to run 5 levels, and then when you play the 6th, only then does the bug reveal itself. And to run it in debug mode takes a while. So I ain't getting rid of that. No way. So if I delete and then maybe set that up as white, like so, and then add that to, because there's currently an alpha, you see, we need to get rid of new from image, reduce that, don't want, remember I've got all my configuration to do again, save to alpha, get rid of that one because that's going to screw up our image, copy that one, and now we've got a nice white image. So now what we can do is set it to a nice grey, like so, and then maybe, I don't know, what should we do? Just some swirls in lighter grey, and then squash all the layers. There's probably an easier package out there, but this is the one I've kind of got used to. So yeah, it's red. Of course it's red. Why wouldn't it be red? And then we do this. And what I'm really just demonstrating is, imagine if you spent a long time doing a nice thing, and you've got maybe, this is a panel for your character, and like so, and then you've got some slots here for your weapons, and then maybe a grid like so, your inventory, whatever it would happen to be. You can save that out, inventory panel.png, and then we can copy that so we don't forget. Go to our script. We need to load in that as another image. So we've got to do that, but of course remember it's no longer in radar, it's in inventory, which is a folder we just created. So we put that in there, just double check that the folder is correct. Great. We need to change it from cursor to say panel. Make sure that we record our global. Technically you don't need to do this at the top, I don't think. I think you just have to declare a variable here and it will assume it's global. So it's just a little tip for you. And I think you have to repeat all of that. Obviously you can do like a for next loop and wrap all this in to make it a little bit more elegant. You'd have to use arrays up here to store these various things. But that's more like advanced programming. But you usually get to that point naturally when you start to find that your program's getting very big and unwieldy. You need to come up with more elegant solutions. So just as we did with image, we have to do the same with SPR. Now remember, when you actually use load image and create image, it returns an arbitrary index. You can't guarantee what that index is. So it's probably best you create individual indices for everything, just in case. So there you go. So now all I've got to do is make sure that shows up. But we don't need to tie it to the mouse position, we just need to tie it to the screen somewhere. So what should I say about 20% by 20% size-wise? If the entire width of the screen is 100 and we've deducted 20 for one margin and another 20 for other margin, that leaves 60. So 60 and leave the aspect ratio of that image intact. So in theory, that is, once we've actually put the correct sprite number in there and saved, we should be able to run and see what happens. Just reading the chat, it looks like we're going off tangent a little bit. A spell that blocks vision. Yeah, that's the big yellow blob. It's definitely going to be on the store at some point, I dare say. Lol, that mouse wheel needs some WD-40. Yeah, sorry about the squeak. It's a nice mouse though, yeah, it's very comfortable. You will be able to buy the HUD image Lee just drawn after the broadcast for $15 on the store. Absolutely. And a bargain. You're absolutely right, QT. It's limited to the first 10 users. Okay, so they're actually taking the mick out of my fine graphics swipes. So there you go. We've actually got what you might imagine to be your inventory panel, and then a cursor that could pick and move things around. But oh dear, I see you scream. We've actually got a problem here because the mouse pointer is behind the image. So what we're gonna have to do is change the order. And I do recall, if we look back at the radar, we have a command. There it is, set sprite priority. Now, as I recall from the broadcast last week, I think it was broadcast 25, the bigger the number is, the further back it is. So 1 would be right up against you, and then 100 would be like way back where. So we want to push that panel back, don't we? So the sprite is the panel sprite, and we set that to 100. So now when we run it, let's see. And I must tell you that there's something going strange, because it's multi-monitor, there's something going strange with my, you know, I move it that far, and then there's no more mouse response, which is not nice. But there's probably a simple, rational explanation for all of this, with the possible exception of little Jimmy Osmond. So we want to be able to have the yellow dot in front of the grey square. So just to make damn sure, we're going to change both sprites. So the panel to 100 and the cursor to 10. No, I say 1 because it needs to be right at the front. So in theory, that goes above that. I say in theory because I'm learning it as you're seeing it, essentially. So go in, got my little cursor. Yeah. It should be in front of, not behind of. So let's reverse those. So, you know, you've got to experiment. Or maybe priority only happens in the main loop. Something else I'll actually investigate. So let's try that again. Get near it. No, it's still behind it. Okay, so got a little bit of mystery there. I'm going to let that one settle on the brains of Ravy. In the meantime, I'll take a not so subtle hint to move it down to here. Constantly set the priority of these mischievous little sprites. It's called the sledgehammer technique. If at first you don't succeed, keep bashing it until it works. It's amazing how often that strategy succeeds. It's the brute force approach. So get near it. Attempt to call with a null value. Okay, let's find out what we did that was so naughty. What was it? So a null value. I suppose it's this. Inventory, S panel, SPR is there, and that one. Yeah, it should be. That's a global. You're creating the sprite. You're setting the position. It's also used further down here for that. But that one, is that one there as well? Yeah, that's there as well. Alright, let's do this one at a time then. Let's comment out both of them in case we've messed something else that we didn't see. There is actually a line number on the error if it pops up again. Okay, so if we just mess about with the panel, because that's all we really want, push the panel back. So inventory, lease panel, PLR 100. Try that. If it does runtime error, it should. Oh, yes. Okay. So it sets priority, set sprite priority at a nil value. Line 32. So line 32, you can see it's this one. It's definitely this one. Set sprite priority. So we go back to radar, reference material. Set sprite to radar sprite. It comes straight from there. It's in the init thing, and it sets it to 100. So you would think that would work. Right. Okay. I'm going to leave a question mark on that because that should be cool. But it's actually producing a error. Let's try the other one then, just for kicks. Right. Fortunately, we're on live chat, so I can actually just speak to the ether, say, speak to the god of Ravyhood, and say, is there anything I'm missing with my wonderful new set sprite priority command? Because that lower command seems to think I'm passing in a null value. I'm sure it all makes perfect sense. And maybe it's got something to do with globals. So I'm up for any sort of ideas you might have. Yes. Okay, so let's try this. Alright, so that's the same error, a nil value. Now, the only one thing that could be a nil value is the variable, which is this. As they're all the same, I'm getting rid of that. Is that one. Set sprite priority. Inventory underscore lease panel SPR. That must be a null. So the only way I can think of is to move it back into... Oh, there's another idea. Oh, I'm full of ideas. Watch this one. Right, instead of creating the sprites here, we just load in the images, right? In fact, no, I'm going to go even more bold and forget init. I'm going to stick it all in this bit. So the very first time... Now, I do not recommend this for a very clear reason. You see these commands here? Load image will stall your game. What I mean by that is you'll get a momentary lurch as it stops what it's doing, hits the file system, loads in some graphics through a file, and then carries on. You never really want to load image command in your main loop because it'll just create those little stutters. You can do it. You can load images and use them on the fly based on what you're doing in the game, but expect that stutter. So if you're going to use it in a mode where the player's stopped, and then you can load in as much as you want. So, will my crazy idea work? I've changed the scope, you see. I've moved the variables into one place, but now inside the main loop. So what happens now? Attempt to load alert nil in line 27. Oh yes. So it's singled it out again. So even if I've moved it to main, it's still not liking that particular thing. So another idea. It's funny though, then set sprite position was fine, you see. And that's a very similar command. Interesting. Well, I'm going to try one more thing, just for kicks. Hello world. So, it's completely local, completely local, completely local, and we don't want the panel here, we want it here. So it'll be on all the time, you see. I'm going to put that there, I'm going to size it there. So it's all in one place. Right. Well, that's the thing, where if you change your script, it can't reflect immediately. You have to come out, back into your editor, and then click Rocket again. Then it will load in that script afresh. That's how we can bounce backwards and forwards. So sets priority null only when you go into there. However, what I did notice is when you got to near there, I wonder, was it that? Let's try that. Save. Run. Okay, how about that? Yeah, but of course our cursor is going to be behind it again. I'm going to check the God of Sprites. Check the spelling of the command is correct. The nil was on the function. You will run out of memory too. It will load them each frame. No, it won't. River suggests it will keep hitting that load image, but look, when we set inventory mode to 0, then we set the flag to 1, so it will only ever call this once per game, which is very important, because you don't really want to be calling load image every single cycle. You will run out of memory, because what will happen is it will create another image and put it in a different image number. So every time you call it, the image will be different. It'll be like, you know, 73, then 74, then 75, then 76, then 77, so on and so forth, and it will just gobble up all your memory very quickly, and you'll get an out of memory error. Ravi suggests that I look a lot closer at this set sprite priority. Yeah, I would also believe it's the spelling of this, but I didn't type it out, I just cut and pasted it from here, from this one. See? If I get all the spacing at the same time as well, and just paste that in, and even call it radar sprite. So the sprite is now radar sprite, and I position it there and I size it there. And let's say those are screwing it up, so let's say I get rid of those as well. So all we're doing is creating it and then setting a priority. What would happen then? Error. Set sprite priority a nil value. I wonder, yeah. It thinks set priority is a variable or something. It doesn't think it's a command. And it should be. So there is definitely a command called set sprite priority, but it's probably misspelled, and that's why you'll never be able to use that one. There's other commands like angle and position and offset. Angle's pretty cool. Instead of priority, which has disappointed me utterly, I'm going to show you this one, which allows us to set, I think it's in degrees, but I'm going to find this out at the same time as you guys. So once you set the sprite, you set the position and the size, which are both fine, and then run it. What we should end up with is, as soon as you walk near, you should get a big on its side panel. Yeah. So you can have a lot of fun with your 2D, you know, panels that can smoothly rotate in and rotate out. There's another command which I think's in. I was talking about it and I'm pretty sure it was added. I hope it is, because this is going to be a really cool command. Can't seem to see it here. It's something like set sprite color or set sprite alpha. Ravi, I know you can hear me, so if you can post in the chat, what's the command for setting the alpha of a sprite? Was it color or alpha? You'd think, being also an aficionado of AGK, I should know this. But it's surprising how little my brain can hold it at once. Like an egg cup these days. I suppose I could guess one until Ravi comes up with the answers for me. So we're going to call it let's have it 22, make that a little bit smaller, maybe 50% of the screen. Set sprite alpha. Yes. Oh no, just got the answer from up on high. Set sprite color, then it's the sprite number, and then it's RGB A. So we want it full red, green, and blue, but we only want 100%. Sorry, 100 out of 255 on the alpha. That should make it semi-transparent in theory. So we run that. It'll be slightly less at an angle and slightly smaller and slightly transparent. So now you can actually have a nice glass, dark glass effect if you want an inventory panel with a bit of schnaz. And now when we made it transparent, we can actually see our mouse coordinate we want it to be. Yeah, I'm quite pleased about that. Yes. Enirod, I know it took you a little bit longer than I wanted to. I just thought I'd just throw them in really quick and it would work first time. Of course, scripting, programming, it's never like that. There's always a lot of to and froing. But now I can actually get this much on the screen. You can imagine that with the power of this, you can actually use the mouse X and mouse Y to get the coordinates, but then you can use your own image for the mouse pointer. Because let's face it, who wants the Windows icon? You want a nice game icon for your menus and things. So then with that, you can move your own mouse pointer around the screen. You've also got that mouse click command that you saw, so you know when you've actually clicked down and then when you've released. So maybe that's how we get out of this mode, by clicking, okay? Let's try that. So if we come out, go in here, I think I'd like to restore my globals actually, because we created a sprite, which looks great, but panel was completely ruined, so we're going to put that back. That never worked. Sprite angle, ding, 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 cool. So that should be all very nice. And now we have a new command. You're in here, buzzing about, minding your own business, and then if mouse click equals 1, then we do something. And what we're going to do is set inventory mode to 99. And what that does, it triggers this next piece of code. Because that flag is now 99, it's going to then set it to 0, unfreeze the player, deactivate the mouse. But is there something else we need to do? Yes. We need to get rid of those sprites. Why? Because there isn't some automatic sort of bit of voodoo which figures out, oh, you're leaving now, I must restore everything. No. When you get to this level, you are fully responsible for everything on the screen. You put it there, you loaded in an image. After you'd loaded in all the default stuff that Game Guru does so well, you're now loading your own graphics, your own stuff. You're creating your own sprites. These are the actual sprites of the engine. So they're every bit as important as the text you see on the screen and the default panels that show you lives and health and weapon ammo and stuff like that. So you become as responsible as we are on what to do with all these sprites once you've left them. So once you've set to 99, it does all that and it should restore it to normal when you click. And to prove that, we're going to run it. And it'll work first time. Hooray! So we go in, we see that, we click, and strangely nothing happens. Hello? Well, it's done something, hasn't it? Let's give ourselves more information then. If we get rid of that prompt, and we put it further outside, right outside in fact, and ask ourselves some pertinent questions. What is the value of inventory mode? What is the value of mouse click? These are both great questions. So having it just freeze like that, you're not really knowing where you are. You need more information. So this is the art of debugging in Lua at the moment. So inventory mode is 0 and mouse click is 0. If I move away from there, just click. You can see mouse click, the global variable, works great. That's the left mouse button, by the way. If I click the right mouse button, it's 2. If I click both of them, it's 3. Why is it 3? Well, it's bit based. So if you think of a binary, and the first slot in binary gives you 1 and 0, and then the second slot would give you 2. So if you actually had bits 1 and 2 set, in binary it's 1 1, but in decimal it's 3. So that's kind of how that works. And of course the mouse wheel, when you hold it down, that's the third bit, which represents a 4. So if I hold down all 3, it would be 7. So as you see, it's a nice way to get access to any combination of values. So we move near. We've got our cursor and had our cursor, and now we're in inventory mode 1. If I click's definitely working. But isn't it interesting? I think I know kind of what's been going on actually. I think I do. What we're going to do is interrogate this. We've got freeze player up here and activate mouse. I wonder if there's some part of it that's actually still moving about even after freeze player has been set, because we're moving the mouse pointer around. That would be very interesting. But inventory mode didn't actually move from 9. It didn't go to 99, did it? Not at all, because it probably wasn't here. Yeah, that makes more sense, doesn't it? So if we move that condition completely outside of that, so as long as mouse click is 1, you'll set inventory to 99. But we also have a condition: if mouse is 1 and then you click the mouse click. Sorry, if inventory mode is 1 and mouse click is 1, then you can set it to 99. But then, of course, you won't actually call that if that's inside there and that condition's been set to false. So when it's 99, that's it deactivates and blah, blah, blah. So, obviously, at some point, you go back and neaten this script up. But just for pure logic's sake, we've got a point now where you go into here, it's moving around, then you click. Here's another thing, because you're always at 150 units from the barrel, as soon as you leave, you come straight back in, which isn't ideal. So what we can do, and this is a rather destructive thing, let's say this barrel's disposable, you can only use the menu once. So once we've finished, we destroy the barrel. Destroy E, E being the entity index. So now, we can go towards the barrel, we can use our little menu, but as soon as we click, we're going to destroy the entity so you can never run that script again. So we move it around, great, wonderful, click, and we're free and clear. Of course, the destroy command also destroyed the barrel. For all intents and purposes, that's kind of what we asked it to do, so that's what it did. So hopefully this bit of a ragtag crazy journey of through even me learning the image and the sprite commands has kind of shown you a lot of different bits, not least of which is the ability that you can actually now create your own interfaces, many panels on the screen, a mouse pointer, being able to detect a click and then what to do about that click, bring art in and then remove the menu within your game as you see fit. You've also got a command in global called scan code or in key. So let's see what you wanted your own key like. You press I and it brings up the inventory panel. You would just have a global script constantly running, maybe in a barrel hidden underground somewhere, until we actually get rid of this stupid barrel idea and you can just put a script running anywhere. And then as soon as you detect I, so G underscore in key equals I, you'd actually put that as a condition. I don't want to confuse you, so I am going to demonstrate it here. So instead of that, what you get within there, you say if incare is the letter I, so you see you don't need proximity anymore. You would just say, as soon as you press I, then go into this stuff. In theory, if we run it, then expected. I wonder if I forgot a then. Of course I forgot again. I'm always forgetting a then. Did I forget a then? No, I didn't. But I did what? You need 2 equals. 1 equals is a sign, and 2 equals is compare. A little bit of information for you. Same in C++. But not in Dart Basic. Or in AGK Basic. So obviously we can get as close as you want to the barrel now. Now, barrel's holding the script. That prompt at the bottom is linked to that barrel over there. But proximity doesn't trigger anymore because we changed the condition, remember, to if you press the I key. So I press I. Doesn't matter where you are in the world, doesn't have to be near any barrels. You've now got access to your menu. And then you click, and it obviously destroys the barrel. Because we asked it to. But there's other things you can do to stop the script actually happening. For example, instead of destroying it, which is a bit destructive, of course it's destructive, you can set inventory mode to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now if you think about it, all of the rest of this code relies on inventory mode being a certain state before it actually does its thing. So having restored everything, and you set to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this script could never really work again because you just sabotage the state value. And then nothing else requires 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's always going to be perpetually at that state. To prove that, just run it. So press all the way over here, press I, do your thing, press thumbs up. Now there's a couple of things that I probably want to change. When we did the unfreeze, you actually noticed that the player dropped down to the ground a little bit. That's because the player's been given its physics cylinder back. The player uses what's called a capsule. Imagine it like a long cylinder with a rounded top and bottom. It's called a capsule, and when you give the player its powers back, as it were, so it knows about the physical universe again, it makes sure that you land on the floor and you don't sink underneath the terrain, and that's what the little drop down is. But it's a bit crude, so we're going to actually drop it down a bit. Just got a message from Ravit with a lot of asterisks and then Lee. Maybe it's to warn me that we're actually at 4:52, 7 minutes to go, or alerting me to a question. VRG asks, do you have a solution with the red and green light up of the entities? I loaded a test level in Dropbox. We downloaded it. Send by email. Yeah, I can't reproduce that. I think the bug is you can have a barrel here. You can also have a red one. As you can see, they highlight red and green. You go into test game. You do some crazy thing like this. Come back out, and the bug report was that those highlights disappear. Well, as you can see, I can't reproduce that, so I'm going to need a nice little step-by-step. That's alright. Synchromesh62 asks, barrel seems to move before freezing. Yes, I saw that too. I have a couple of theories actually, that even though freeze player is supposed to freeze the player, what if the player capsule is still moving? Because the camera stopped, but what if the capsule for the player is flying off and hitting the barrel? But then that wouldn't make sense because I'm not using the arrows. I'm using the mouse. So could the mouse move the barrel? So I press I. I'm moving my mouse around. See, the barrel's not moving anymore. If I move the arrow keys around, the barrel's not moving anymore. So, unfortunately, it's one of those situations. Did it really see it? Did it really exist? So, we're going to have someone find and reproduce that so that we can take a closer look. But yeah, it's definitely something that happened. Game Guru is posting set sprite priority. It should be set sprite depth. Yes! And we have time to make up for it. Okay, great. Makes more sense, and I like the sound of depth better. So now we set that to there. We get rid of our transparency because we don't need to see through that anymore. Now we're going to run it. Press I. Well, the problem is, and it is a problem, I'm moving my mouse around, but because I'm in my multi-monitor mode, I have to be very lucky, really. I'll keep running it, put the mouse pointer at different places. Maybe we can get it doing its thing. Nope. Maybe move it over here. Yeah. Well, there's more than one way to skin a cat in my book. We're going to make it so big. 125, please. Now, in theory, the yellow dot should be in front of that big grey square because of set sprite depth. And remember, it didn't crash, did it? It didn't do an error. Of course. And then change the rotation to 0. So there's no rotation anymore. Thanks very much. And then press I. We're going to assume that yellow dot was in the same place. You know, we're going to have to leave this a mystery. And in the next Twitch, we're going to reveal what the hell is going on. Yeah, so I'm going to do it one more time. I feel lucky. No, I feel very unlucky. But yes, it didn't do the runtime the Lua error report anymore, which means that is the correct one. Set sprite depth. We'll set the panel to 100, and I also recommend you don't actually do it in the. That's a terrible idea. Do it in the init, where it's nice, and it does it before the game starts. That's the best place to put it. We've got a question. Oh yeah, the reason it actually works when you put it in the init, the set sprite priority, which by the way doesn't exist as a command, is because the init will silently fail if there's any errors in it. That's why there's no error messages if you put it in there. So it never really worked. VRG asked, the problem after testing the level, I cannot select with light up anymore. There's no. Don't really know what light up means. You mean the highlighter? Yeah. Well, it needs to be reproduced. We need to have, launch Game Guru, add this entity, add that entity, press this button, come back, do this, do that. An observation. What do you expect and what actually happened? And if we have all that in a nice, neat row, then we can either disprove it to say, well, that's not a bug, or we can say, yes, that's a bug and we can fix it. But we need a little bit more information. Keith C adds, add donuts. Oh, sorry, and donuts. In whatever context that is, I have no clue. But I'll tell you what context I am in. There's literally less than 2 minutes before the end of my Twitch broadcast. I had planned to make it this 45 minutes, but as you know, with our adventures into scripting, it's not always plain sailing, and when things go wrong, you just have to deal with them. So hopefully that was a nice little walkthrough, and more specifically, little eye-opener into what you'll be able to see in the very near future in terms of in-game menus, thanks to just a few very simple commands like activate mouse, and then mouse X, mouse Y, and mouse click, and of course deactivate mouse. With those 4 things, you can do a lot of really cool things, like I said, including making 2D games. Keith C says, the donuts is a cop thing. Absolutely, I think I know what we're talking about now. But I'm afraid there's no donuts in this broadcast. And with that, I am going to thank you once more for your attention and for sticking with me for the whole hour. We'll be back next Wednesday. It may be Ravy, it may be myself, but whoever it is, it will always be interesting because it's unscripted. So until next week, thank you very much and goodbye.